だいまよりパネルディスカッション、将来のエネルギー問題における
Let us start the panel discussion on significance of hydrate research and Canada-Japan collaboration for overcoming energy issues in the future. Our facilitator will continue to be Professor Yasuhiko. As soon as we get more information, we will let you know. Having said that, let us start the panel discussion. As to how we proceed, I would like to ask each speaker in the afternoon session to spend about 5 minutes to recap, spend 5 minutes how your speech relates to energy and how it can contribute to future development. And we would like to use the comment as a basis for Q&A. We'd like to ask the audience to give us some comments as well. And we'd like to have a free discussion afterwards. We plan to finish everything by 5 o'clock. Now, in following the sequence of afternoon session speeches, I'd like to ask Dr. Ripmeester to start.
Well, I would like to start by emphasizing that hydrate research has two quite different parts, and one is a part that deals with technology and uses macroscopic concepts, and that often it is forgotten that hydrates consists of host cavities and gas molecules that have molecular properties. And many of the interesting properties of hydrates depend on knowledge of how gas molecules behave, and hence gas molecule chemistry is quite important, because that is what often determines the details of the hydrate properties that form. So I would then emphasize too that it is time, I think, that we move beyond the concepts that were developed in 1960 and 1970, and which have survived almost intact without any changes since that time. And many researchers continue to use these models, which I think have outlived their usefulness, and we should be able to do better. And I think the results will be quite remarkable in the sense that we will actually understand much more about our hydrate systems, also about designing new hydrate systems. For instance, the work that Professor OHMURA described on heat pumps and heat storage or cool energy storage depend very much on being able to tune hydrates to give specific properties. And I think this is quite possible, but I think what needs to develop the insight by considering the molecular aspects. So I think this is my first and main comment at this stage.
Thank you for your comments. Professor OHMURA talked about hydrate-based technology, how much of gas molecules can be captured or incorporated, and that is an important aspect. A microscopic molecular level understanding is quite important. Other panelists or audience from the floor, if you have any opinion, questions, comments to Dr. Ripmeester, I'd like to ask Yasuoka-san to make a comment or question, if I may. I'd like to use the prerogative as a facilitator to assign a person to speak.
I'm interested in the molecular point of view with the glass-rate hydrate. I studied molecular dynamics simulation. So I'm interested in the physical chemistry or chemical physics. So, but sometimes I'm consider the difference between the research, the molecular point of view research, and between the research and the industrial the point of view. So so today your talk about much interested in much concentrated in the research level. I think that how go to the industrial point.
Well, I think that for instance, it would be possible to use, say, you know, if you're familiar with the van der Waals equation, it is a perfectly good model, except after the approximations are made. For instance, spherical cavities and spherical molecules with parameters derived from viscosity data, which, you know, again give you an isotropic molecule. So if you actually use the real geometry of the cages and the real geometry of guest molecules, you could still calculate all the potentials and the Langmuir constants, but you wouldn't use the approximations that the cages are spherical, and you wouldn't use the Keio potential, but you would include electrostatics. So if you did all those things, you'd have a much better model. And it should be much more powerful in terms of predicting properties. You wouldn't have to, or you shouldn't have to parameterize all your constants and fit them, and then come up with perhaps a better fitting equation, but without any real intuition, without any new intuitive feelings about your hydrate. So it's not necessarily a very difficult process. The actual execution of it might be more difficult because you'd have to write new software to do all these things, right? But I think it's certainly within the capability of today's science. I don't see it as, there are no major obstacles except someone has to do it. So if you have the time, maybe you should do it.
Thank you for your response. The discussion just took place, or any matters that are related to the current discussion. If you have questions and comments, please let us know. A very microscopic research and a very practical study is done by Professor Mizuki and Professor Berosutov. You are involved in the practical researches. Any advice or any comment? The time range and number of atoms using conventional simulation or using first property, time can be very short. In reality, time range is very long and volume is quite large. If you use simple method with a fixed MD, even with fixed MD, it's impossible. Some kind of method needs to be devised from Hemto to a month or a day scale needs to be used. Angstrom to centimeters to nanoscales needs to be done. We are doing the simulation, so that can be done by our group. So using simulation, I think we can contribute.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to make comment, or among the panelists, if you have any opinion? I am serving sort of like representative of the manufacturers. So when we have the industrial use or application, we have to transport in atmosphere. And our test result, we actually are having the trials and errors and try to come up with the stable hydrate, which would be beneficial for the industrial use. So the structure 1-methane hydrate is much easier to be stabilized. But when we add the propane, then we have more high concentration of the propane and we'll have less stable stability. So it's a repeating of the trials and error. And so we do have the laboratory, and so we also would like to study from the molecular dynamics perspective. And so if we can have a better collaboration between the industry and academic, and if you find anything new, and we would like to have the feedback to the industry. Thank you very much. So from the field of the actual technology and development, he made the comment, but is there any counter opinion or any advice that you can make to him? So I also would like to make some comments. As Dr. Ripmeester had said about the very fundamental physical chemistry perspective, that we should be more accurate in forecasting the feature and the property of the hydrate. And Professor Yasuhiko had said that that's good, but how we can utilize to the industry? I think that was the question made by the Professor Yasuhiko. And I also agree with what Professor Mizuki had said, but there are all these calculation methodology, something that we cannot think from the molecular level. So we just would like to utilize whatever there's available and try to find out on some difficulties and issues as well. So these kind of various approaches, if the industry, Mr. Watanabe had mentioned that they also would like to utilize on such new methodologies. I am working in the university for several years, and before that, I had also been involved in the laboratories, and my major is on the mechanical engineering. So what I am doing is that I always try to talk with the people in the commercial arena. So I think I was fortunate to have such opportunity, but those people who are involved in the molecular level of the physical chemistry, and for those people in the industry who would like to proactively be utilizing the hydrate, I think it's difficult to find a forum to talk to each other directly. But if we have such opportunity, then perhaps we'll be able to have a better understanding on what kind of research should be done, or even for the commercial people, how they can commercialize such research results. And if we can create and build a kind of forum and opportunity, then the basic research and also the engineering practice of the industry should be more active. I think I'm concluding or summarizing this forum today, but if we can have that kind of opportunity as like a joint research between Canada and Japan, that will be very much appreciated. Thank you very much. So I think you can say this as a summary after 55 minutes from now.
About the relationship between the fundamental research and technology development.
Thank you, Professor Mori. It was interesting. I will pick up from where Dr. Ripmeester left, where he mentioned the duality of gas hydrates with respect to technology being a macroscopic consideration and in close relationship with fundamental molecular scale properties. And it's interesting to think about that when you take into account the fact that gas hydrates have been known for 200 years. They were a curiosity most of that time. Then they became of interest to industry, and actually we were very successful dealing with hydrates in industry, even though the challenges continue changing. We were able to deal with them and facilitate production of and processing of oil and gas. An area where I think the relationship has to be investigate a bit further is the area of utilizing gas hydrates as a platform for technology, whether it is gas separation, water desalination, many other applications. The fact of the matter is that in spite of considerable human effort and ingenuity and investment, we're not at the stage where we have commercial technologies, or in other words, profitable technologies. I'm pleased to see that we're moving closer and closer in several areas, and it's not my job to summarize these, but I think we should perhaps question why have we not been so successful in commercializing technologies based on gas hydrates, other than the well-known practice of inhibition of gas hydrates in pipelines. I focused more on hydrates and carbon management because gas hydrates can be brought there as a factor for technology development, but also as an inevitable occurrence if you're interested to, well, you have to eventually sequester CO2 in the earth. Most likely, you're going to be faced with the hydrate formation, and you have to know how this phenomenon occurs in such large scale. There is no doubt that the challenge to reduce greenhouse gas emission is an enormous challenge, and there are commercial technologies to capture CO2, but they have not been deployed at the required pilot power plant scale. We're talking about millions of metric tons of CO2 per year that have to be dealt with for even a single power plant. There are serious economic and policy issues that need to be resolved. As I said, hydrates come into the picture as a potential technology under consideration, but there are enormous technical as well as economic challenges compared to other competing technologies. Where we're going to see more the hydrates playing a role is in the sequestration side, and I mentioned geological storage, particularly the exchange between methane and CO2, which can have the benefit of recovering energy as well, but also in depleted gas pools, which offer a realistic scenario to store CO2 and overall achieve an energy industry that is more sustainable in terms of dealing with the overall carbon issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have actually been developing further from what Dr. Ripmeester had said. So I would like to move back to the original procedure. So from Mr. Watanabe, I would like to ask for your own opinion or recap on what you have already shared with us. So as a molecular dynamic perspective, there are something that the manufacturers are not really good at. And that's the reason why I wanted to share with you on our issue. So we, as a manufacturer, what we study is that how to apply hydrate for the energy transport. And also there are some other things that the CO2 separation. So if we can have a better collaboration between the academy and the industry, then I think that's quite ideal. And we are transport with NGH, but this minus 20 Celsius degrees, we also have to have like self-storage or with under the stable condition. But there are some opinions why the hydrate would be stabilized. And there are several reasons, and we try not to have the diffusions. And so if we ask them, so what's the best way, then they will say, well, that's one of the choice, one of selection. So if you can combine your intelligence and how the hydrate will be equilibrium and stable, then that will be very much useful for us in terms of the technology. Thank you very much.
So Mr. Watanabe alluded to how to store hydrate under ambient pressure, where thermodynamically it should not be stable. And negative 20 degrees centigrade is what Mitsui uses. But American Geological Survey Group shows the data with a higher temperature, which supposedly provides the best stability. So depending on the data source, it seems that there are some differences. And generally speaking, there's ice forming on the surface, covering the surface, making the whole thing stable, but we don't know the details of why it is self-preserved or maintains its stability. This is a very important issue in terms of technology. So if anybody has an opinion about what this is about, or if you have any research that's going on, or any comments from the panelists, would be welcome as well. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, and I'm just wondering which one should go first. Okay, start from the left. Dr. Uchida from Hokkaido University, please start. I would like to state my comment in Japanese. The self-preservation effect was a keyword that was mentioned, and continuation of what was discussed earlier. We talked about molecular scale, what kind of research would be needed, and I was thinking about that in my head as well as I was listening to the explanation. But when it comes to industrialization or commercialization, research on thermal stability is not the answer to every question. Kinetic reaction and the pure stable state, what is actually happening in that state. And you used the word stability, but what kind of time scale are we talking about? How long can we maintain this stability? So these languages come from different backgrounds, different cultures, and they have to be used for different purposes to describe different things. That's very complicated. So covering all of those differences, again, we need to understand what this phenomenon is in the first place. I think that's the most important thing for us to do. So going back to this self-preservation, it's important for us to have ice in the presence. We understand that. But how does ice suppress the dissociation of hydrate? So at the molecular level, maybe with higher time resolution or longer time scale, we have to have a proper discussion. So starting from a very, very small scale to long scale, we have to have a comprehensive understanding of what's really happening. Shall I pass the microphone to the person next to me? Yes, please. Dr. Takei from ICE. So self-preservation, I think this is a very difficult thing, as I found out during my own research. As we continue with the research, I really feel that some researchers really focus on the details and really drill down on the details. On the other hand, people in the industry are really trying to commercialize the technology. And I think there's always a gap. We try to understand each other, but I really feel that there's always a gap and that it doesn't getting smaller over time. Molecular level discussion may be difficult or easy to understand, but either way, it's impactful. It leaves a strong impact in people's minds. So when I hear the presentation, I understand it. It leaves a strong impression. But how do we translate that to commercialization? I don't think the both sides are really working together yet. As Dr. Omura mentioned earlier, we need to have more opportunities to have these discussions so that we can come closer together and work more closely together. That's my personal opinion. Thank you. So we talked about the micro-level research and gap between that and commercialization, as well as self-preservation. Any other comments from the audience regarding this point?
Thank you very much for nice discussion. I'm working for the Keio University as a technology transfer manager. And I'd like to make some comment to Professor Peter Englezos. You raised the question why hydrate is not commercialized so quickly. So my opinion is, to be honest, hydrate is not familiar with us like me, just a citizenship. So my suggestion is it is necessary to promote public relation, PR, of hydrate. Why, how this hydrate is so variable source of energy and useful for energy. So to do so, to promote PR, my suggestion is it is better to join not only scientists, but also the social scientists or economists, or I think in this place, maybe very few people who specialize in economics or politics or social studies. So this is my suggestion is. Thank you very much.
Do you have some comment or reply?
I think, yes, there is an issue of policy and influence policy making. I agree with this, and also raising the profile with the public, creating more awareness. I agree. And at the same time, I think we should always look at the science and the technical side of things from the innovation perspective and also from the economics perspective. Sometimes we have the tendency to go into a path, but we haven't done the very simple economic analysis either against a competitive technology or against its own to ultimately determine the cost. And that's what happened in the 1960s, where desalination based on hydrates was demonstrated technically at the pilot scale, but it never materialized into a commercial scale simply because other technologies were a bit more economical and more robust.
Thank you very much. When it comes to universities, research institutes, and commercial organizations, I'm sure that every individual is already busy doing his or her own work, and it's very difficult to try to support this cause. But maybe I wonder if Mr. Sato would be able to exert leadership